Deep in the whispering woods lived a little bluebird named Lulu. Now, Lulu was known throughout the woods for her beautiful singing. Every morning when she woke up, she would sing. Every evening when she went to bed, she would hum. And when the other little animals heard her sweet singing, they would stop whatever they were doing and listen. They loved listening to her so much that pretty soon the whole forest was filled with birds that sang just like Lulu. And though Lulu liked the sound of her own singing, she didn't really like the sound of all the other birds copying her. But what could she do? They were only copying her because they loved her songs. One day, though, Lulu woke up and something was very wrong. She tried to sing, but no matter how hard she tried, no sound came out. She tried again. She opened her mouth as wide as she could, flapped her wings as hard as she could, but all that came out was a little squeak. And when she looked around, she saw that all the other birds were looking at her with amusement. "What's so funny?" squeaked Lulu. "You," said one of the birds, giggling, "sound like my little brother when he was just learning to sing." Another bird said, "You sound like a rusty hinge on an old barn door." And another said, "You sound like a tea kettle about to boil over." And Lulu felt tears pricking at her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. She knew that if she cried, those birds would only laugh more. So instead, she did something she had never done before. She spread her wings and flew away without making a single sound. She flew past trees and bushes and logs and rocks until she came to a clearing. And there, sitting on a stump, was an old owl. "Excuse me," said Lulu, but the owl just stared at her with his big yellow eyes. "I'm sorry," said Lulu, "but have you seen or heard anything unusual? I lost my voice, and I'm looking for it." The owl blinked slowly. "Lost your voice? Well, that doesn't seem unusual. In fact, every day I hear all sorts of voices floating by. You see, this is the forest of lost sounds. And whenever someone or something loses their sound, they come here to find it. But I've never seen a bluebird around these parts before." "Oh, but I'm in a hurry," said Lulu. "Do you know which way my voice might have gone?" Said the owl. "Well, over there," he said, pointing his wing towards a dark part of the woods. "I heard the sound of rushing water earlier today. And voices tend to travel downhill, so I imagine your voice probably floated that way." "Thank you," said Lulu, and she flew towards the sound of the rushing water. But after flying a little ways, she came to a small stream, and on the other side, she could hear the sound of gurgling water. But there was no bridge, and Lulu didn't want to get her feathers wet. So she asked a nearby frog to carry her across on his back. "Hop on," said the frog. And as they crossed the stream, Lulu asked, "Have you seen or heard anything unusual around here?" "I lost my voice, and I'm looking for it." The frog shook his head. "No, but you can ask my friend Ozzy over there. He knows everything that's going on around here." And sure enough, as soon as Ozzy saw Lulu, he said, "Ah, yes, I know why you're here. You lost your voice, didn't you? Don't worry, I can help you find it. All you have to do is follow the path to the singing stones. Your voice will be waiting for you there." "Thank you," said Lulu. And as soon as the frog and the lizard had hopped away, she flew down the path towards the singing stones. But as she flew, she could hear all sorts of sounds. There was the sound of buzzing bees and chirping crickets, the sound of a family of rabbits playing a game, and even the sound of a mouse sneezing. And though some of these sounds were pleasant to hear, many of them weren't. And as Lulu flew from tree to tree, she listened to all the sounds of the forest. She heard the sound of leaves crunching under heavy footsteps. She heard the sound of hammering, and she even heard the sound of a loud guffaw. And though some of these sounds made her sad, many of them made her happy. For she realized that each creature in the forest had its own special sound, and that was what made the forest such a wonderful place to live. At last, Lulu came to a clearing, and in the middle of the clearing stood a large rock monolith. And as she got closer, she realized that the rock monolith was actually made up of many smaller stones, and each stone was singing. There was the sound of tinkling bells, the sound of a flute, and even the sound of drums. And as Lulu approached the rock monolith, she heard a voice. "Welcome to the singing stones, little bird. I am the guardian of sounds, and you must be Lulu." "How did you know my name?" asked Lulu. "Because," said the guardian of sounds, "every sound has a name. In fact, every sound has a story, and these stones are just brimming with stories. I can hear the sound of the forest all around us. I hear the sound of the wind whispering through the trees, the sound of raindrops falling on leaves, and the sound of a family of foxes playing in a field. And then Lulu noticed that the stone that had been making the drumming sound was now silent, and she knew that this was her voice. "Oh, please," she begged the guardian of sounds. "Can I have my voice back? I don't care what it sounds like. I just want to sing again." The guardian of sounds looked at Lulu with his kind eyes and said, "Of course you can have your voice back. In fact, I think it's time you learned a valuable lesson. All of us have a unique sound to share with the world, and it's our job to listen to the sounds around us and use our unique sound wisely. After all, if everyone sounded the same, the world would be a very boring place to live." Then the guardian of sounds placed his hand on the drumming stone and said, "Will you help me show Lulu what I mean?" "I'd love to," said the stone. And as soon as the guardian of sounds stepped back, the stone began to drum again. And then all the other stones joined in and began to play a marching tune. And after the tune ended, the guardian of sounds said to Lulu, "Now it's your turn." He placed his hand on the stone that was making the drumming sound and waited. At first, Lulu was scared, but then she took a deep breath and started to sing. And as she sang, she could feel her voice growing stronger and richer than ever before. And when she finished her song, the other stones applauded. And then the guardian of sounds said, "That was beautiful, Lulu. You have a wonderful voice, and I know you'll use it wisely." Then the guardian of sounds waved his magic wand, and poof, Lulu found herself back in the clearing where she had lost her voice. And as she looked around, she saw all the other birds staring at her. "Lulu," they said, "we haven't heard you sing in so long. Will you sing us a song?" But before Lulu could answer, one of the birds interrupted. Wait, let me go first. I learned a song while you were gone." And the bird opened his mouth as wide as he could, but nothing came out. He said, "Why can't I sing?" And then all the other birds looked at each other and realized that they couldn't sing either. They tried and tried, but all that came out was a little squeak. And when it was Lulu's turn to sing, she thought about all the wonderful sounds she had heard in the forest of lost sounds, and she knew that she didn't want to waste her beautiful voice. So she took a deep breath and sang as sweetly as she could. And when she finished her song, all the birds burst into applause. "Bravo, Lulu," they said. That was a wonderful song, and from that day forward, Lulu used her voice wisely, and she always remembered the valuable lesson she had learned in the forest of lost sounds. The end.